All right, welcome to step 6. In this video, we're going to use future contracts to adjust the beta of the portfolio to our target as a function of what our forecast beta is. So this is the key equation that we're going to be applying. The number of contracts we need is equal to the targeted beta, and this is the initial beta that you have. If I go to my first portfolio, the beta I came up with was 1.16, and my initial value of the portfolio was $4.56 million. So we want to maintain this 1.16 beta as a forecast as we go forward. All right, so back to the equation. It's a targeted beta, that's my 1.16, minus the forecast beta, divided by the beta of the future. Now, since we're using S&P 500 futures, this is just 1. It represents the market. Then we multiply that by the ratio of the value of the portfolio divided by the multiplier of the contract times the price of the contract. And again, we're going to open this contract up in the morning of the first day of the month, and we're going to close it at the end of the last day of the month. So that's the basic concept that we're going to be working through. All right, let's go to our numbers here. I'm going to go ahead and white out a couple of cells down here in the bottom and go to my next and white out a couple of cells down here, just to make it a little bit easier. Now, I've done a little bit of formatting up here too. You guys should have enough knowledge at this point on the formatting that you don't need me to go through it. Anyway, when you're working with Excel, there's a couple of different strategies. One of the strategies is to put everything on one sheet. In some cases, that's pretty direct. However, what can happen is that your worksheet gets too big. Let me zoom in here a little bit so it makes it easier to see. Your worksheet gets kind of too big for everybody to follow. So the second object method, I guess would be another word, is to create two interactive sheets so that this sheet actually reflects and works with another sheet, and that they feed back in between each other. So you're building two sheets at one time. And that's the methodology that we're going to apply in this particular case. So my targeted beta here is my 1.16. And then my month equal, I can just go to my for reference and click on December, and we'll go ahead and drag this guy down to our January position. All right, portfolio value. This is the portfolio value at the start of the month. So mine was 4.56, and I'm just going to multiply that by, I'm going to put an equal sign here, 4.56, an equal sign. So 4.56, and I'm going to multiply that by my 1 million. And then we'll go ahead and make that formatted in terms of dollars, just to make it maybe a little bit easier to see. Get rid of some decimal places associated with it. I got one too many zeros in my numbers. There we go, 4.56 million. And let's just widen that out so things fit pretty good. Now, number of contracts. So this is going to be equal to the quantity of my targeted beta, and then I'm going to subtract from that, under my forecast risk, subtract from that my forecast beta, and then I want my targeted beta always remain constant, so I'm going to just go ahead and hit F4 at that point. Then we're going to multiply that by the value of the portfolio, and then we're going to divide by the quantity of 50. Now 50 is the multiplier for the E-mini contract, and then we're going to multiply that by, and we're going over here to S all, ES being ES contracts, all being all the contracts are on one page. So we're going to multiply that by our initial starting value. So that's the January 1st, and it's at the open. So that's the price that we're going to be multiplying by. All right. So this says we need 39.867 contracts. The value of the contracts is then going to be equal to the number of contracts that we have, and we're going to multiply that by the opening or my contract price. And we can go ahead, I need an N times 50. Okay, so that we can see that by using these contracts, just doing a little format here, by using these contracts, we're taking on a lot of leverage. So the total value of the portfolio with these contracts in it is equal to my starting value of 5.6 million, and then I add to that my contract value, which is the leverage associated with it. P weight and C weight, this represents the amount of the portfolio that I actually own. And I'm going to divide that by the total. And this one is in fact equal to the value of the contracts divided by the total that's out there. All right, one of the limitations of the process I'm showing you here is we're not considering the margin that's required. So when I open these contracts, I think currently the margin requirement is $10,000. So for each contract, I have to be able to post up to $10,000. Now, if I'm doing 40 contracts times 10,000, that's $400,000. So I have all the margin that I need to actually open up the contract position that I'm interested in. But there's a cash adjustment, the mark to market. So if I start losing money, they'll actually start taking money out of my account. And what that means, I'm going to sell the stocks that are in the account and the same proportional weights, so that I'm able to generate the money that's required. Since I have excess capital in my account, I could actually just let my margin build, and they'll debit it away from me until I get to a margin call point. All right, so we've completed this first underlying line right here. And these tables are going to be a little bit on the tricky side because you can't just drag things up as easily as you would normally do. So we're going to go to the report return. We'll just go ahead and set the month equation equal. That's going to just be equal to my risk set. And I'm going to go ahead and add a line under here, and we'll drag it down again to January. And again, just to make things clear, let me fill this with white, or a no fill. All right, again, our portfolio starting value is going to be equal to the base value that we had. Now the number of let me go ahead and put that in dollar signs to make things a little bit easier. Now the number of contracts is a little bit different, right? I can't buy a fraction of a contract, so we're going to use the round function, and we're going to pick the precise number of contracts. Comma 0 says we want the integer value. So this is saying I'm actually going to do 40 contracts, not this 39.86. The contract value then is going to be equal to my 40. I multiply by my multiplier, which is 50, and I multiply that by my opening value. So that's, again, at the open. And let's put that into dollar format and get rid of the zeros as well. Total value of the portfolio, again, is just going to be equal to the sum of these two guys. All right, contract gain or loss. Now, this is where things get a little bit more on the tricky side. Our ending value, let me take a look over here. Our ending value is the settlement on the last day of the month. This is the closing price, let's say. So I would settle at a price of 1,988.5, where I entered the contracts at 2,055. So I can tell you right away we're going to lose a little bit of money here. So we went to ending value, the settle value on the 24th, on the last day of the month, and we subtract that from our starting point. We multiply it by the number of contracts, and then we multiply that by the multiplier of 50. So let's just do it. So my gain or loss is simply going to be equal to, and let's get our quantity in here first. That's going to be S all, and it's the closing price minus the open price. So if I try and drag this thing up, I'm going to get off sequence. When we actually do it, I am going to drag it up, but then I have to go back and edit each one of the equations very carefully. Now we're going to multiply that by the multiplier, which for an E-mini contract is a multiplier of 50, meaning it's 50 times whatever the contract price is the total value that you have associated with it. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of contracts that we have. Make sure you do this in the same order that I'm doing it in, so that your references are coming in correctly. So in this case, I lost $133,000 on my contracts by adjusting my portfolio position. Portfolio end value. We have our portfolio return. So this is going to equal the quantity of 1, and then we add to it the portfolio return for January. All right, and then we multiply that by the starting value of the portfolio, and then we add to that the gain or the loss associated with the risk adjustment that we did. So my net performance at the end of the month is I end up with $4,360,000. The net return is going to be the quantity of the ending value minus the beginning value, and then we divide that again by the beginning value. Now let's go ahead and make that a percentage and add a couple of decimal places to it. So not an auspicious beginning here. And this highlights one of the points that are kind of difficult to understand with respect to futures, but hopefully this will give you a better feel for what's going on. What we're experiencing here is what's known as a change of basis. The cash value that I have is my portfolio value. That's the cash position. The future contract position is the value of the future contracts. And the statistical relationship that I'm depending on is that by having the beta set right, my expectation is the market's going to go up, and therefore I should get extra money by doing this. The reality is the market went down, which was unexpected, and my portfolio went down. So I ended up actually amplifying my loss or increasing the loss associated with it. All right, so now we need to interact these two guys. So this is the end value of the portfolio, and that's going to be equal to the starting value for February. And I don't need any, we don't need any decimal points here. Okay. So now we're gonna go back through and we're gonna work the next line of the next interaction. Let me also zoom up on this one a little bit closer so you can see the equations maybe a little bit better in the spreadsheet a little bit better. Let me open that up a little bit more. There you go, a little bit more in that. Okay. So here we go, on to the next one. So this is again my starting value. This is the number of contracts. Now the targeted beta that will drag up without a problem. My issue here is my next starting point. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag up one spot. It moved instead of drag. Wait till my cursor changes. Okay, here we go. All right. The problem is right here, ESL B24. And if we look at ESL B24, well, that's the last day. That's the opening price for the last day of January, and I want the opening price for the first day of February. So that's what I need to change here, and that's going to be B23. So I'm just going to edit the equation and go into B23. All right, everything else should work out just the way it's supposed to with the drag up. That shouldn't be a problem. So I need 42.6 contracts. Contract value, this is B25. When I drag it up, let's just take a quick look. ESL B25. Should be G. Oh no, this is the opening contract. So the contract value should also be referencing B23. So we're just going to go ahead and edit the equation. There's my 23. Total value, I can go ahead and pull that one up. And my portfolio weights, I can go ahead and pull those up. And this is the way you're going to go ahead and build this interactive spreadsheet between the two. I've got my new starting value. This guy is just going to be equal to the one on the other sheet. This is the interactive component of it. And then our round function, we'll just go ahead and pull that one up. Not a problem. And we need to edit this one. Drag it up. And then it should be 23. And then the total value we'll go ahead and drag up. Now our gain and loss will go ahead and drag up, and then we got to edit. So we want G23, so it should be B23, right? Because that's the one they were using before, and then we got to come down to G22. And just to show you that those work out correctly, here's my ESL. B23 is my opening price, and then G22 is the settlement on the last day of February. All right, so in this case, I got an extra $241,000 out of my contracts. I'm going to go ahead and drag my port return up. And you'll notice that I'm actually at 4.6, almost $4.7 million. So I've taken my loss and completely obliterated it, and actually went to a positive position in the portfolio. So what I'm doing here, by using these future contracts the way that we're using them to adjust systematic risk, is we're actually trying to increase our risk position. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you believe that the market is going to be tending to go up, then taking on some added risk is going to be a good idea. If you believe that the market is going to be tending to go down, then decreasing the risk might be a good idea. So we're using the future contracts to directly manage the risk associated with the portfolio. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and fill in the next line, and then I'm going to let you guys figure out how to rewatch the video if you need to, but how to go ahead and complete the rest of the underlying table. Let's start by just clearing things out here a little bit more, and I'll do it on this one too, so it stands as clear as it possibly can. All right, so here we go. First step equals port return, and I want my ending value. All right, number of contracts. We're going to go ahead and drag that up. And again, everything is good except for this B22. The B22, if I look at SL, we're on March. So what I want is B21. So here's the first day of March. B21 is the guy I want. So I'll just edit the equation and say it's the B21. That's 38 contracts. Contract value I can go ahead and pull up. And I need to change this again to B21. Total value, these next three, we can just go ahead and drag up one. So we're slowly building our underlying spreadsheet as working on the simulation, I guess would be one way to put it, or the validation of our modeling concept, and looking to see what happens if, you know, how well this particular strategy is working for this particular, my particular portfolio. You may be doing much better than this one is, or you may be doing slightly worse than this one is, but we'll see. All right, so we'll just, again, we'll drag up here. That's my next starting point value. We'll drag up here because this we're just doing a rounding function. This one we're using B23, so when I go up, it'll be 22, and I need to adjust it to 21 because that's the starting point. Total value is just a drag up. And then here we need to make two adjustments. The B23 is going to become 21, and then the G is going to become 20. And if you can always make, you can always refer back to your ES-All tab to see where these things are going. In this case, I lost 66,000 on my future contracts. Let me go ahead and open this up. I gained extra on my portfolio. My net return here is for the month was only 0.26%. All right, so that's the basic process. I'm going to do one more video after this one. We'll come back to the complete tables. We'll do a couple of plots, and then the rest is going to be up to you. All right, so this is the way that you're going to be using the future contracts, and the way future contracts are often used to try and manage the risk of a portfolio by managing the underlying beta of the portfolio. If your risk is getting a little too low, and we can talk about that real quick. I mentioned this, I think, once before, but just real quick. Suppose that the risk actually goes down. Okay, but the return stays the same. At that point, you have a bargain. In other words, it's lower risk for the same kind of return. You want to take on leverage. You want to have extra risk in there, because, you know, if you could get a 5% return for a 2% risk, or you can get a 5% return for a 1% risk, well, obviously 5 is better. 5% return for 1% risk is good. So basically the item is undervalued. It's being sold cheaply, and of course when things are being sold cheaply, people want to buy them, and so you actually end up with some excess return. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to increase our risk position because there's a decrease in overall risk, and we want to take advantage of that by multiplying our returns. The same concept is general concept of leverage that's in the market. Using future contracts is not the only way to do it. We could borrow money and do that as well. And in a sense, we're doing that with future contracts. Future contracts can actually be a little bit cheaper ways to do it than doing a leverage position. All right, so that's the overall methodology. Good luck in getting the rest of it taken care of. You'll just have to watch the video. If you're having problems, just watch the videos again. And be careful, very careful, that you're making those adjustments, because the future contract prices are in pairs. Again, we buy into the open price on the first day of the month, and then we close out the position at the settle price at the end of the month. And one other thing I'll just note here. In this case, I had a minus 133,000, so I would have sold the stock proportional to the percentages that are in there to generate the $133,000. In this case, at the end of the month, I ended up with $241,333.50, or $337.50. I would take that cash and buy the stocks in the exact same proportions, the valuated proportions from Project One. And same thing's going on here. I would sell in the exact same proportions so that I ended up with this much money and rock my way through it. So that I'm always 100% invested in the stocks, that we're not leaving cash on the table, because that cash does not earn a very good return relative to what our forecast values are for the stocks. All right, thank you very much, and hope you're enjoying the project. This will be the, well, it's not the last project on stocks, but we're going to shift over to bond portfolios after this. There's, for every dollar spent on stocks, there's probably like $100 spent on bonds. So having a good solid understanding of bond portfolios and bond hedging techniques, again, very marketable skill that's out there. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Bye.